all, in today's video we're going to be talking about some common mistakes that people do when they write their personal statement slash statement of purpose slash motivational letter slash admission essay. I noticed this pattern of sort of common mistakes that people do after I review more than 10 of your essays. So if you don't know, since last year I have opened an essay review service. If you are interested, a little plug here, just drop me an email with where you're applying to, what you're applying to, what review you need. Is it like personal statement? Is it purpose? Is it research proposal? Is it CV? And I'll send you a quote. But anyways, yeah, these are some common mistakes and some examples along the way as well, so that you can avoid them in your future essays. Okay, there are 5, and the first one is being vague with your points or your word. I saw this very often. People would just say like, I want to do this degree because I am passionate about it, but you don't explain why you're passionate. Or people saying like, I want to do this degree because of the great faculty members, but you don't specify like who exactly. So whenever you write a sentence, I will always challenge the sentence by asking, is there another layer of detail or specification that I could add to the sentence? Because if it's too broad and too general, your essay would not be distinguishable from other people's essay, because everyone will be writing the same thing. Everyone will be saying like, I'm passionate in economics, and yeah, people cannot pinpoint that this is a you element. So an example of this would be there's this case when a math student mentioned some books, right, in his essay, and then said like, these books bridge a gap in my knowledge, and I advised him to spell out exactly what is that gap. Is it the mathematical models, or is it specific theories? And in this case, because the guy was also working in the finance industry, I advised what is it, the specific learnings that you can get, maybe the application of these math theories that you get in your job that you think that these books have informed you. So don't be too general. Whenever you caught yourself writing something general, ask yourself like, okay, what is another layer to this? A lot of times there needs a lot of reflections, because as humans, I think we tend to just generalize like as a feeling. We put them into this like monolithic model of like, yes, I'm passionate, I like this, but you have to specify. Again, otherwise it wouldn't be a unique or sort of like a you personal statement. Number 2 actually relates a little bit to the first one, is don't drop names and journals and articles, books whatsoever for the sake of it. I saw this very often as well, where people would just be like, I read this by this professor, and that made me interested in this field. Again, it has to do this with specification. You don't want to just say like, I've read this book and that book generally inspired me. Even if that is the case, you want to pick a very specific element of that book, a very specific take, go deeper and analyze. Is there specific angles that probably the book has not explore, that you think is very interesting and you want to explore more? And usually people drop like these like books and authors name because the authors teach in that department or in that university, and obviously you want to make sure that you know your stuff. Like, you don't want to just say like, hey, I've read the book and that's it. Again, everyone can do that, but not everyone can do that deeper analysis. I think it's also a way for you to show that you are actually engaging with scholarship, with the field, because if you're just saying like, I read this book, again, anyone can say that I've read the book, and so why is it different for you that you want to pursue a degree because you're inspired by that book, right? Don't just mention literature. It's always good, but only when it is backed with actual point and specifying what you actually take or learn from this book or this journal article or this literature. Okay, number 3 is sentences that are too long. I've also come across this quite a lot on social science students. Specifically, interestingly, we tend to write a sentence that goes for like 1 paragraph and we don't even realize it, and I think I do it sometimes as well. So a good litmus test is look at how many full stops you have in that paragraph. If it's like a 4 or 5 lines paragraph and you only have 1 or 2 full stops, then try to break those sentences down. A common mistake that kind of relates to this is that people like to sound smart, and so they would use like complicated languages, complicated structure. But really, these admission officers, I think, go through like thousands of essays, and you want to make their life easy, right? You don't want to complicate them with vocabularies that you have to go through thesaurus to kind of look for like synonyms for and things like that. Just be plain in your language. Like, you don't have to make this complicated, just make it easy for them to read. And that goes with breaking your sentences into smaller chunks instead of making like, you know, long paragraph-ish sentences. Okay, number 4 is negative tones. I actually mentioned this in my Cambridge personal statement video, where you want to avoid sounding negative or sounding like you're whining. So if there's a particular angle to like a specific thing that, okay, in reality it is a negative thing, but you just want to frame it in a slightly sort of more positive way. So an example of this would be, I was reviewing this girl's essay. She was writing about how her professor was very strict and made a lot of students cry, yet she actually thrived in his class. And I actually recommended that, hey, maybe you can change like this part where you say like your professor made students cry to this, where sounds a little bit more positive, right? It's the same thing, but just taken from a different angle. Hey guys, future Bianca here. I'm editing a video and just thought that I would want to give like a bit more context about this. I realized I haven't explained it in a bit more detail. So the context, the essay prompt is actually to discuss a time when you face a difficult challenge or hurdle during your study and how you navigated through it. And this girl was basically using that example of that professor being, you know, a bit like unaccommodative in teaching, being strict and all, and that sort of impacted most of the students in her class, but not her, because like she actually ended up like learning a lot from this professor. It's not just about changing the tone from like a negative tone to a positive one, but it also shifts the focus back to you as the author and not like the professor, like the lecturer himself. So because like it is about you, right? It's not about the professor. So, you know, it answers the question more directly as well, rather than you saying like, you know, he's famous for making students cry. So anyways, yeah, that's a little context. If you saw any negative notes in your sentences, try to think of another angle where you could make it sound more positive and not just you whining about the problem, but what have you sort of worked on to turn the table and turn the situation. I think that would add more substance, and it shows that you care enough about this subject, this issue, that you're actually engaging with it with your proactiveness instead of just like whining about it. Finally, your personal statement is not a laundry list of your achievements. Some people made a point to kind of mention every single thing that they've done. Sometimes it doesn't even relate to the degree that they're applying to. So I know that a lot of you guys are really, you know, highly ambitious people. You do a lot of things, you go on competitions, you do organizations, you lead this, you lead that, you do internships, you do whatever. But there's no point in mentioning everything and anything if they don't relate to your whole story. So the way you think about your personal statement is not your CV, right? If you want to list down those things, do it in your CV, don't do it in your personal statement. Your personal statement is a story. So you gotta think of a broader storyline, and instead of making your achievement and what you've done the outline of your story, do it the other way around, where you prepare a storyline. This storyline will then have, you know, pockets of points, whether it is to show that you care deeply about the issue, that you've done something. And so that's where you would introduce your experiences, your achievements as supporting materials to the points that you're making. So, you know, like the whole show don't tell, I think it's also another common mistake, but okay, let's make that number 6, right? A show don't tell is basically you don't want to just say like I'm passionate, but you want to say like I'm passionate and see what I've done. And that's where you want to include relevant achievements or relevant experiences. see why I emphasize relevant, because if it's not relevant, don't put it. They can look at it in your CV. So there you have it, guys. And hopefully by knowing this, you could, if you don't go for my essay review service or anything, you could also still look at your essay and try to pick apart whether you have the tendencies to make it a laundry list, or a tendency to just tell without showing, or you have a tendency to write sentences that are too long and convoluted and not easily understandable, or if you are using any negative tone, or if you're being a bit vague with your words, not like very clear and sharp enough with your points. What else? Yeah, or you probably have dropped some names, some professors' names, some authors, some literature that you honestly actually don't really read. Or you don't really have a point to make, you just want to put it there, then maybe you want to avoid that as well. So I hope this is useful for you guys. Let me know what sort of content you want to see next, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!